I am bringing back to life a video from a few years ago, but I have provided you with the images that are needed to reproduce the video, and they're with the materials for today's lesson. So I'll go ahead and let this continue as it was a couple of years ago. So let's start first by going to File, Open, and let's go over to the folder that was set for today, Saturday, February 24th. There's a folder in there called the Transform tool. In there, there are two images that are part of the PDF tutorial that I have available to go over what I'm doing on this video. And they're called the Transform Arch and the Angel Statue. So if you'll select both of those and open them, they're the ones that we're going to begin working with. And for the purpose of my video, I'm going to consolidate both the images to tabs so we see both file titles at the top. Depending on the software you're using, the Transform tool is in full Photoshop, found under the Edit menu, and in versions of Photoshop Elements, it's found in the Image menu. So we'll use it from wherever it is for you. And the first picture I'm showing is the angel one. And I'm putting it here because one of the very helpful uses of this tool is when the perspective on a picture needs to be adjusted. In this case, I was shooting up at a statue in the front of the church, and I didn't get exactly centered, but I certainly was shooting up, and I didn't care to see that effect in my final image. Let me remind you that there's no harm whatsoever in leaving a keystoning on an image. If it's the effect you want, you leave it there. In this case, I wanted to correct it. I'm going to begin with the Transform Perspective tool. So go to Transform, either in the Edit menu or in Elements in the Image menu. And when you get there, you have a number of options, and one we're going to use is the one that says Perspective. What that's going to do is give us access to the corners of the image. In my case, I don't have room to see the whole image at this moment, and so I'm going to go and go to the view and say Fit on Screen, which is Control or Command 0, so that I see the entire image in my image area. And if you can look carefully, you'll see it. There are little handles on the corners and on the middle of this. And what's unique about the Transform Perspective tool, if I pull on one corner, the opposite corner goes the other way. So if I start on the upper left corner and I want to pull it out, you'll notice the right corner comes out also. And I'm going to correct the corner I'm dealing with, which is the left one. And you'll see that I don't have a perfect result in the right. And that's because I was not standing exactly centered to my subject. If you want a perfect perspective, you need to be absolutely centered. We've learned that when we're shooting inside a church and we want to get a beautifully centered picture, you must be in the middle of that center aisle precisely, or it's not correct. So my first thing is to accept what I've done, either with the Enter, the Return key, or in Elements, the green check does the same thing. And then I know I have to adjust the top right corner because it didn't correct exactly. So when you want to fix one corner and not move the other, you go to the Transform Skew tool. So let's go back to the Transform menu, and this time we're going to choose the word Skew. Once again, we get points at the corner, and you'll notice they're beyond what you see because I have already adjusted this image and it no longer goes way out to the edge. But if I go to the top right little point and I drag it in, it will move that point without moving the left point. And so if I really wanted this perfectly straight, I could finish the job using Skew. The two tools that I use most commonly are either Perspective or Skew, or another one, which is Free Transform. And that's very useful if your image is going to be put in a frame and it's either too big for the frame you've chosen or too small, and you need to resize the image to fit in the frame. Free transform will move it diagonally at 45 degrees and not lose your orientation height versus width. So you can make it larger or smaller and make it fit in a given space without distorting the image. So let me accept this one. And so this would be the use of perspective with a final adjustment in skew, because quite often we are not exactly centered to our image. So I'm going to close the angel statue image and not save it. And the reason for that is I find it's helpful if you have that image and can work on it yourself later as a practice. Because while you're learning to use a tool, it's sometimes helpful to have images given to you to work on. And once you're comfortable with the tool, then you're likely to use it on your own images when you see a need to do so. All right, here is a really weird one that is messed up considerably. I can't even tell you for sure, but I sure didn't level my image. And I also wasn't square on it, and it's a mess. Well, you know, normally we would just throw this away, but it makes a good practice image for learning to do what we're doing. And so I'm going to start by leveling this image where the bushes reach the pavement at the bottom. So I'm going to go over and grab the straighten tool. And with that in hand, I can draw a line which I think is approximately where I want that to be level. And it will do the first job by leveling my image. I'm now going to use transform tools to see if I can bring this back to it looks a little more normal. And I'm definitely going to use skew because every corner is a mess. And so let's go and grab the transform skew tool again. And then I want to suggest to you that if you pull a corner away from the middle, you are less likely to lose space in your image. When you push a corner in, you're creating a smaller size image to deal with. So I'm going to start at the upper right, and you'll notice it shows me where the original image was before I straightened it. So if I grab that and pull that out and try to get it so that it looks better in the inside here, that I've got a vertical line, I come out here, I want to take the bottom corner and pull that corner out and see if I can get something straightened that way. I then need to take the top corner, push that one up, and what I'm doing is basically taking all the corners of this image and trying to see if I can bring back something that is usable. And the advantage in doing this is that it does give you some experience for seeing what that skew tool will do. If you don't have enough room to get fully around this image, if you're in Elements, you may want to close this bottom area, which is the photo bin. I can hide it and get back more vision area. Now I can see those corners and continue to work with them. And so it's a case of doing whatever it takes to get the best possible correction in that image. And if it's as bad as this, you will work with it quite a bit before you decide that it's about the best it can be. And then ultimately, I'm going to have to crop to get away from the wasted edges. But you can see that with skew, you can work on any corner and distorting that. Now, I'm going to accept the work I did, either with Return or Enter key or the green check in Elements. And then, if I would like to enlarge this to get back some space around it, it's a good time to go to the free transform tool. So let's go up to that transform and choose free transform. This one is easily reached by Control or Command T for transform. And now I can go and start enlarging this image to make it fit better. Oh, and once again, I have this nasty part I don't want down here. I want to get rid of that so I can see what I'm doing. So if I go to the corner and I have a diagonal arrow, it's going to expand this evenly in all directions and see if I can gain back a little space around the image. So it actually helps me not to eliminate as much of that image as I was before. And here I can stretch it out in the middle, and over here I can go to the midpoint, and it will let me stretch the image that direction. And it's still a long way from being perfect, but it does show you. If I use it like this, I would need to clone in that little white area, or I can come in and just expand that a little wider to get rid of it, okay? So you will never try to repair an image in as bad shape as this, but it's a good one to explore how to use both skew and how to straighten. And of course, in correcting my skew, I kind of lost my straighten part of this. So that, if you get a picture like this, you really dispose of it and say, it's not worth the work it would take to try to rescue it. But you did give you a place to use those tools. So I'm going to accept it as it is, and I'm not going to save it because I'd rather you had it as a way just to experiment with. So if you'll close the transform arch image and click Don't Save, I want you to see that in the files provided for February 24th, 2018, I've given you some other practice images. Let's go to File, Open, and if you go into the Transform folder, you'll see there is a folder called Transform Practice Images. If I open that, I have a whole bunch of other images that are useful for playing around with. And most of those I've put down Transform Skew because it probably is something that requires practice to get used to using. And then I have one up there for Transform Free that I thought you might like to use with the PDF file I've provided. I've given you ways of opening free transform and making it go to the other versions, such as Skew or Distort, by simply holding down keys in front of you. You don't have to go and change to a different tool. So free transform by itself allows you to enlarge but maintain proportions if you use the corners, or it allows you to stretch or widen an image using the mid of each side. But in this case, I find that I use it, and I might say to you that, if you're working on your own picture and you have more freedom than you might have on somebody else's portrait, and you decide that the camera did a bad job of showing how slim you are, the free transform with a little bit of pulling in on the sides will skinny the picture a little. Or if you're stunted and you're sure you look taller, you can use free transform to stretch a little bit. Now, don't overdo it or you'll quickly see unrealistic. But I can tell you a tiny bit of that sometimes gives you an image you're much happier with. So these are the other ones you're welcome to work with. And then once you've used those tools and you know how they work, then I encourage you to have it as one of the tools in your mind available when you're working on images and you see a problem where you didn't get a nice squared up image and you need to correct that, and Transform will do that for you.